Hello, I'm Dr. Jeff Vance with the Immaculate Heart of Mary Counseling Center, and I'm going to talk today about happiness and what brings us to a happy life. We actually all have kind of a base range of happiness, and while sometimes we go above or below our base ranges, we tend to return to them. They say money can't buy happiness, and it turns out when people win the lottery, they experience an immediate burst of happiness, but after a few months, most people return right back to those base levels. And what about health? It turned out that when people were in crippling accidents and became paraplegics, they immediately and understandably felt really bad. But after several months, most of them returned right back to their base levels of happiness, just like the lottery winners. When we think about happiness, most people are thinking about positive feelings of happiness, joy, and gladness, and these are important, but it turns out that happiness, especially enduring happiness, is much more than this. So some psychologists, led by Martin Seligman, did a whole lot of research on authentic happiness, and they identified three types of happy lives: the pleasurable life, the good life, and the meaningful life. The pleasurable life is just what it sounds like: feeling pleasure, doing things that make us feel good. These are things like eating chocolate or buying a lot of cool stuff. But if our only happiness comes from feeling pleasure, we will eventually feel let down because pleasure is not permanent. We may even start seeking pleasure in destructive ways like drugs or alcohol. A pleasurable life is great, but for enduring happiness, we also need the good life and the meaningful life. The good life involves engagement and has been described as flow, becoming one with the music. This happens when we become so engaged in activity that time seems to stop. It frequently happens when our skill level and activity hit that perfect equilibrium. Many of you may have experienced this getting wrapped up in a video game or a creative or athletic activity. Or maybe you've had the experience of standing next to someone who's in flow and you're calling their name and they don't even seem to notice. Um, when we're really in the zone, we don't really feel good or bad, and that's why we don't always think about this as being important to be authentically happy life. Now, the good life is great, but it's not enough to sustain us through the times when we're not engaged in our passions. The most authentically happy people also have the meaningful life. This requires a commitment to something outside of ourselves. It happens when we use our signature strengths and virtues to serve a higher purpose. It is when we feel a sense of vocation or that we're serving a calling. This can definitely happen with religious vocations, but it can also happen with a vocation to marriage or single life. Sometimes we feel it volunteering. It can happen within our jobs. Now, some occupations, like first responders, lend themselves more easily to this. But if we find a way to use our signature strengths in any occupation, we can develop that sense of meaning. Maybe it helps if we regard our signature strengths and virtues as gifts from God and consider that we are called to use these gifts in our daily living. The meaningful life is key to enduring happiness. So I wish all of you a pleasurable life, a good life, and a meaningful life. God bless you.